Greetings! You are watching Million Mile Garage, and what I'm going to share with you today is my lifetime collection of diecast vehicles. I'm going to do all 164 today, or we'll say 164-ish. And just letting you in on a couple of things. I generically refer to most of these cars as Matchbox cars, even though I have a lot of Tomica or Tomica sprinkled in there. There's some Corgi and a lot of Hot Wheels, and there's some other, cool makes in between, Kidco, Yatming, Zilmex, Tin Toy. And those are the ones that I can remember right off. I'm going to start with my very first Matchbox car, at least the very first one that I can really remember. And that's going to be my Matchbox Volkswagen 1600. And as you can see, this is a pre-Superfast version. And I did a little research on the internet, and I think the transitional year was 1969. So this would have to be early 69, but I think they came out with this model in 1967. And what's kind of neat about the history on this one is my father bought, or actually he got the first new Volkswagen Fastback, I think in Newport News, Virginia, which is where I was born, back in 1966, I think is when he got his. And he probably bought this for me, or maybe it sat on his dresser for a while, who knows, right? But that's my very first memory of a Matchbox car, is this actual one right here. So I'm going to say this is probably 69 or pre-69 I got that, so I'd have been, probably 3 years old. And you can see it's got some playwear, and unfortunately it's got a big nick in the roof. I don't remember how that happened. That sat on my dresser for many years, and then I noticed that nick after we made the move from Florida up to northern Alabama. I didn't pack most of my stuff. I had to move up here for work ahead of time. So not blaming it on anybody, I'm just saying I don't remember. But anyway, that's my very first one, and that's the story behind that. I probably got that as my first one because my father had a red Volkswagen 1600 just like this one. I think it even had a white interior, or whitish, beigeish. This also is some of my earliest memories, and this is a Johnny Lightning Smuggler in all its originalness. And you can see the clear tinted green lacquer finish over the zinc body has lifted over the years. They put a very thin coat on there so that you can still see the bright die-cast zinc body, which if you look at the interior, that's a die-cast zinc interior as well. You can see the base is corroded somewhat. And just so you know, these are really die-cast out of Zamic, which stands for zinc, aluminum, magnesium, and copper. And I think there's only trace amounts of the aluminum, magnesium, and copper. So I think like 99.3 or 99.7% of this casting is just zinc. But if you don't put those trace amounts in there, they get what they call blossoming. And but this early I think this is a Hong Kong as well. It may not say on it, but I think these earlier ones were made in Hong Kong, just like the Hot Wheels were. And basically they were competing with Matchbox, who in my opinion made high quality die-cast vehicles. You can tell by the thickness of the paint there where it's chipped. And while they were mostly into solids, right, enamels, they tended to be high quality enamels. And they probably baked them on at the factory as well. So they tended, to me, I think they probably withstood the test of time better than most of the early Hot Wheels stuff. There's an antifreeze green one. And it looks okay-ish. It's got some playwear. This actually was given to me by someone, and I'll get to that story in a minute. It's kind of an interesting story. Kind of moving around, and just kind of pointing out, I don't know how everybody feels about their collections, but mine are kind of like time capsules. Most of these earlier cars, the older ones, I can remember where I was when I got them. I can remember where I was living, and I lived in a lot of different places, which is why the cars were always dear to me. No matter where we lived, I always had my toy collection with me, my cars. That Matchbox City was with me most of my life as well. So just kind of moving over here, I'll give you a really good early memory on this. This is a Volkswagen microbus, number 60 or number 23, okay, 1970. I got this much later, so they used this casting for a while. This was a Kmart purchase in Lakeland, Florida. I'm going to say this is around 1974, maybe 73, probably 74. And they used to pack them on blister packs, and they look just like that, hanging up, on the display at Kmart. And the first one that Mom bought me, I opened it up when we got into the car, and it had no paint on the back. It was bare. So we went back to customer service. We got another one, and we went out to the car, opened it, and it had a big splotch of lint in the middle with barely any paint on it. So two in a row. They must not have been having a good day who was ever doing those, at least the painting. I guess not a lot of quality control back then either, right? It was just the eyeball of the people putting them together. So the third one we opened in front of customer service, and it was flawless. And I really enjoyed having it and went through a lot. It was a neat story. But unfortunately, Florida is a very hot place, and we used to travel a lot on the weekends. We used to do a lot of mini vacations. And one of them was driving down to Miami in this Duster that this car collection is sitting on. It's covered. If you watch my channel, you know what the car looks like. And you had a fold-down rear seat in the Duster, so my sister and I were playing with my cars on the package tray underneath the window. And this one got left in the rear window when we went out to eat. And we went into the restaurant and had a nice meal. And when we came back out, the sun going through the back window actually melted all of the glass inside it. It just crinkled it up. So I just opened the roof and reached inside with my tiny little fingers at the time and finished crinkling it up and pulled it out and threw it away. So this is a windowless model. It didn't come that way, unfortunately. I guess it just wasn't meant to be. But I held on to it nonetheless. I still cherish it to this day. Moving around a little bit. Pretty good story here. So there's Tojo. Anybody that collects these knows what Tojo is. That BP wrecker right there may have had that before the Volkswagen, around the same time. I know they transitioned on these as well. I don't know if the BP wrecker ever had super fast wheels or not, but I know the solid black plastic wheels stayed on the trucks for a while. Unfortunately, my original one was stolen from me. I say circa 1974 as well. This is a number 13 wrecker? Must be an unlucky number. It was definitely unlucky for the one I had. It's still got his plastic hook too. That's nice. I used to take my cars out and very carefully play with them in the yard. A lot of times I'd have my Matchbox City unfolded in the lawn so I didn't scratch them up. I was always kind of fussy about the cars. Mom calls me in for lunch, and I go inside, and when I come back out, my Hot Wheels Thunderbird is missing. My Mercedes 280 SL is missing. My Wrecker is missing, and I think my Rolls Royce was missing as well. I think those were the four that the neighbor's kids across the street kiked them, took them, stole them, however you want to word it, and very upset about that. We didn't have a great relationship with those neighbors across the street. I think they had like a broken family going on. I think the mom wanted a divorce from the dad, and she eventually got it. He basically vacated the premises and left them behind. And I guess the kids probably just, probably wanted what I had, and it wasn't the Matchbox cars. They probably wanted a happy home life. And one of the younger brothers, who wasn't such a rat, he got me my cars back and gave me two of his brother's cars. This one, what was it called? Torero. And it was kind of in this same nicked up shape when I got it. They didn't take care of their stuff, as well as this antifreeze green one, which is nicked up a little bit, but I would say everything considered, it's probably fared out pretty well. Turbo Fire. That's funny. So kind of kiping the name from, what would that be? Chevrolet, right? They're small blocks, Turbo Fire. Hot Wheels was famous for that, for repurposing already existing names, weren't they? So before I got the cars back, it was a couple weeks had passed, and we kind of bickered back and forth over that. They claimed they didn't take them, et cetera, et cetera. I think my parents got involved. It was kind of weird, but anyway, I never got the wrecker back. I think the boys smashed it up with a hammer, did God only knows what to it. So Dad bought me Tojo, and he bought me the Matchbox version of the Mercedes sports car. I think this one was the 350 SL, right? Because they had probably grown in displacement by then. Yep. And this is the Matchbox number 6. I also happen to have, for some reason, I ended up with two of those. I think I actually got one at a birthday party one year, and they're different shades, right? Seems like they always have to be a different color, right? Kind of weird. But anyway, you see how the paint job on this one is fared out. Pretty darn good, right? I've had that one since 74-ish. The story on the 280 SL, that I actually got them back. Rusty gave me all of my cars back that they took, along with the two extra ones. So I actually fared out pretty good in that swap. I was down one tow truck an old one, but I got a new tow truck and a couple new cars in exchange and a couple used ones. The story on this one, and my beloved Volkswagen Beach Bomb, the Thunderbird, which I got back, although they had nicked it up, not cool. The lady next door to us, and this is around circa, I guess, 1974, 75, she had moved, I guess they moved from Massachusetts, somewhere from up north, because they had that northern accent, you know. She had a bunch of these that were still in the cards, still in the blister packs. So she said that when she got a fill up at the gas station she went to, she got a free Hot Wheels every time she got a fill up. And she was an accumulator. She didn't throw a lot of stuff away. And of course, why would she throw away something this cool? She had a daughter that was a little younger than me who wasn't into cars. So I think for my birthday one year, she gave me these. So she gave me the 280 SL. She gave me this, I think that's like a Lola GT70, GT something. Yeah, Lola GT70. She gave me that. All in the original packages. Not the great color, right? It kind of didn't have this Vector flame on it. The Thunderbird. And, oh, she gave that, the other one was a Formula car. Where's that? Yep, the Hot Wheels Formula. Now, a lot of these, I don't know if it was a special deal or what, but they came with water slide decals. So I applied all the decals myself. These were not pre-decaled. Price is $69 on the base as well, right? Yep. Hong Kong. Yep, Mattel, competing with the British labor, right? With the foreign Hong Kong labor. And we'll talk about that in a future video. So, I was happy I got most of my cars back. Tojo towed a lot of cars. And I think he also spent some time in the attic, unfortunately. You know, when you get older, you know, you don't want to toss them, but you don't have room for them. You know, smaller houses, whatever. So my son and I were playing with this. And of course, you know, the proper way to stow Tojo is to push the hooks behind these two little things right there. And when we were pushing those hooks back and tweak the booms, I guess the interior is a structural part of this floor right here. And it had gotten brittle. And it actually broke the dashboard and part of the seat. So unfortunately, Tojo is in mint condition paint-wise. I don't think I ever took Tojo out. Might be a little play around the wheels, but that's probably from rolling on the linoleum floor. I don't think Tojo ever went outside. But unfortunately, even Tojo, I guess he's not number 13, is he? 74. You know, that's weird because years later, this one, I think, was also a number 74 or 75. So that Mercury Cougar Villager number 74. So obviously they changed, right, positions as they, you know, retired models, reintroduced new ones. And since a lot of these bring back memories, I can remember where I was when I got this one. So I was a little older, right, because this is a later version of the wagon, which doesn't have the trailer hitch. Kind of weird. But on the bottom, what does it say? It says Mercury Cougar Villager, number 74. I bought this in November of 1983. 1983. My grandfather had passed away on my dad's side, and so we had to go up to North Carolina, Elizabeth City, for the funeral, and buried him in November of 83. And the day that we buried him, it was raining and probably 40 degrees outside. It was absolutely awful. Gosh, what a terrible time that was. The whole family came up there. We have a huge family. And I just remember one of my cousins who was like 89 pounds soaking wet. You know, she wore a nice dress to the funeral, but she was just absolutely freezing. It was just absolutely awful. But both grandparents lived in the same town. So on my mom's side, Grandpa took me to a store called Farm Fresh, and they had one of those cool displays, you know, like the hobby stores would have, and they sold them in the boxes. And I bought this one. I was just happy to get it, and kind of took a really rotten time and made it a little more pleasant. And I still remember a lot of the bad things about that trip, but I also remember the goodness of finding this really, really nice metallic green Mercury Cougar Villager, which they were very hard to find even then. Very rarely would you score one, like I guess on a blister pack like at Kmart or something. So that's the story on that. That activates a lot of memories just seeing that. Got to show you the Beach Bomb. Kind of an interesting story on this one. Again, this is, you know, part of the ones that the neighbor gave me. How cool is that, right? This was actually gifted to me. I didn't even pay the, you know, 39 cents for it or whatever they cost back then. And you're just looking at the bottom, Hot Wheels Beach Bomb. I think this is 1969, probably like they all do, right? And it's that beautiful Spectra Flame red. You see it has a little bit of playwear. Now some of that nick is from it falling, I think 2 stories up onto the floor. It might have been at Busch Gardens or Disney World. I had it in my hand. I was going down a guardrail, and somebody bumped into me and knocked it out of my hand, and it fell down, bounced off the floor way down. And I started hollering and screaming about it. And a passerby grabbed it and tossed it up to my father. He caught it with one shot. He caught it, and he put it in his pocket, and I didn't get it till we got home. But it came home with its surfboards intact, and that's the last time that I think it actually left the house on its own. Kind of a cool story. The Rolls Royce, which I think was a theft recovery from those nasty boys across the street. I carved my initials in it after that. And this was one of those special toys. Another one that actually came in the box, and it had the cool chrome wheels like my first Matchbox car, the Volkswagen 1600. Gandy Toy Stores in Lakeland, Florida was kind of like the FAO Schwartz of that era. I don't think we had one of those in town, but he had all the higher end, kind of the snooty stuff. And his cost more, but he had one of those cool display, racks on his counter. And you could go in and pick it out by number, and he'd get the little box out and you get it. And I guess at the time, I guess Kmart, maybe the Matchbox for maybe, I can't remember if they were 39 cents or 49 cents. I know the Hot Wheels sometimes were priced a little less, but I think he was always like 15 or 20 cents more. So when you bought one of his, you were paying, top dollar for it. But again, it was hard to find a lot of these models at Kmart in a blister pack. I'm sure they probably existed, but I never saw them. So anytime I got a cool one like that, it was usually a Gandy's buy, which was also, I can't remember where I just put this guy. Oh yeah, I put him right there, didn't I? Yep, we'll set him up just like that. Oh wait, he was there, that's right. I always thought that was the rich people's house. That's where I always parked my Rolls Royce and my Mercedes stuff. I guess the Volkswagen, that would be the hired help, right? Getting back to Gandy. I'm going to try to keep this video to half an hour, so bear with me. I'm going to do a few of these, but I just thought I'd get you guys acquainted with the collection here. Ferrari Berlinetta. And this is the only one I have with the cool die-cast wire wheels. I thought that was just a beautiful green. This lighting doesn't do it justice. It's almost kind of like a jewel green. It's absolutely just a lovely car. If I can do better with better backlighting or something, maybe we can turn on the light here, maybe. Put on this overhead light here, maybe that helps. No, I guess it doesn't help. Absolutely lovely car. This one never went outside. And it even has a hitch. Kind of odd, a Ferrari with a hitch, right? But definitely a high-end one. Pretty cool. Really happy to get that one. Wish I had the original box still. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Just kind of going around. Rat Rod, that's one of my early ones as well. In fact, old Rat Rod right there is parked in the same parking spot that he's in right here. Kind of cool. Next to Rat Rod is Piston Popper. Matchbox was mixing it up a little bit, right? And they were kind of trying to be Hot Wheelsy, right? They kind of had like a really dark tinted clear blue over a Zamek body. But you notice something about the Matchbox? They never tend to get that zinc rot or those blooms like I showed on the 280. That was like that before it came out of the pack. It had rust, it had corrosion blisters just on the trunk lid, and over the years it corroded a lot worse. Just from handling wear, the acid in your fingers, and then of course just the atmosphere, the oxygen and moisture getting in there and breaking it down. And that's what happens when you have that clear coat of probably just clear lacquer, tinted green over that. They were put on very thin. A lot of my Hot Wheels did not age well because of that. They just did not have a lot of paint on them. Again, they were competing on price back then. And speaking of competing on price, this was bought in Knoxville, Tennessee, or around that area, about 1973. And you can see it's still got the red line tires and wheels on it, but it's got kind of a muddy blue paint job, kind of a crappy paint job too. It's kind of not real smooth, just not high quality in my opinion. And again, they've got the cheapest labor, but they're also skimping on the materials, competing with Matchbox and Corgi too, I suppose. These came in blister packs in pairs, and that's another one, that same awful blue or a variation of it, and the paint would just flake off of them like crazy. So I'd actually taken some Testors model paint when I was young and repainted the top here. You can see it's a slightly different hue, and the tops of the fenders. If you looked at this the wrong way, the paint would flake off. They were just awful. Same with this one over here, was I think just a dreadful color. You know, no Spectraflame. You know, they were cutting costs. And the enamel paint was, I just don't think of the same quality of the Matchbox, and especially not the Tomicas or Tomicas, however you pronounce that. Just looking for some other ones over here. Yeah, this even this one built in somewhere around 69. You know, it was in that blister pack that was given to me. You can see the paint is just was not that great, you know, from day one, and really kind of a muddy color, just not very attractive like a lot of the Matchbox. Even when the Matchbox used solid colors, usually it was a higher quality paint. But some of them they did really good on, like this Hot Wheels Taxi. I'd say that had a much nicer paint job. It's got the shine. They put enough paint on it, and it tended not to flake off as much, you know, compared to this one, you know, built just about around the same era. This one's a little later though, because it has the plastic base, right? So it says 69 on it, but I'm going to say that was probably 74 or later. I'm not sure when they transitioned to the solid tires without the stripes, but you can see there's a pair of Oldsmobiles there. There's the taxi one, radio dispatched, pretty cool. And then you've got the fire department rig. So I always had to have my fire department vehicles out when the city was up, right? You had to have your emergency vehicles. And there's, you know, Matchbox kind of trying to be Hot Wheelsy. I think a fail. I like cars that look like cars. I don't like the made up stuff very much, just not my thing. Although I really did like Tojo, but I think I like this one better. Just kind of moving around here. Yeah, speaking of that, here's a 57 Chevy too. So you look at this, and you look at the quality paint job on that. You can see through the paint. And, you know, and again, it's just a non-metallic red, non-clear red, and I would say an enamel at this point. Just not, you know, not the highest quality. Even if you look at a Matchbox of that era, which I think, you know, they were trying to be Hot Wheelsy too, and I think kind of a fail. I do like the twin carbs poking out of the hood. That's kind of neat, but the front never fits right. It never seems to lay down right. But even though they were doing solids, it was just, you know, they put a lot of paint on them, and they tended not to flake or corrode. I think just a little better quality. Although, you know, Hot Wheels, they had some that they spent the money on, right? Like this one. But it was sporadic. So that one's got the metal flake paint, and it's absolutely gorgeous. What a difference the paint job makes, doesn't it? Same casting, right? Well, maybe slightly different, right? It's got the motor poking through the hood, which is kind of cool for Hot Wheels. Gold tone rims. Same 1976 on the base, I think, but it says Malaysia here, whereas I think the early one actually was the Hong Kong version. This one's pretty old. Yeah, Hong Kong. You see some of the vacuum metallizing is worn off the base. This one was handled quite a bit. This one I liked it. My friends liked it too. That one always got put in the city when we set it up. So yeah, just kind of making the rounds here. Hot Wheels fire department truck. Cool story on that. That was purchased at Radio Shack around 1974, maybe 73. Has the Spectraflame paint, which is nice, and in the background is a crimson red fire engine Matchbox. So they were kind of attempting to be a little Hot Wheelsy, right, with the crimson paint. Really nice paint job. Plastic bottom, kind of weird. Very light, but just really very attractive. This one has the ladder intact. I actually picked this one up a little later in life, so I could just have one with the ladder, right? When you collect them, right? That's what you do. My early one, which I probably got this one when I was 6 or 7. I thought that the ladder was supposed to be detachable. I think both my sister and I thought the same thing. So somehow we got the ladder detached, but I think once we did it, it didn't get reattached. And I know it sat loose underneath it in the tray for years, but somehow it's come up missing. So that's unfortunate because it's just about mint. Other than it's missing its ladder, like the other 5,000 on eBay, right? So, but leave it to Tomica. Some people just call them Tomy pocket cars, which I thought was neat how they differentiated from Matchbox. So instead of calling it a Matchbox car, they called it a pocket car. And Tomy used to have these really cool chrome rim inserts on their vehicles. All of them had them, and they had different variations. You know, like their early Datsun replica, it had the larger, same type of deal, but kind of try to make it look antique. Very neat. This one particularly is the Datsun, and you can't really tell the make. Looks like it's done in Japanese, but it does say number 60, Tomica. Scale 149. I always like how they put the actual scale on them. And you notice the Tomicas tended to be a little smaller than the other ones. Same thing with the Jeep. And I'll do a whole thing on Tomicas. I don't want to get just into Tomica or Tomica. The Mitsubishi Jeep, kind of cool. There's a cool story on that one. But you notice on the Tomica, the ladder does extend all the way up, and it's still intact. See that? So a lot of thought went into that. Again, the same price point as Matchbox, maybe even a little less. These were all of my Tomicas were purchased at Lakeland and Zayre's, just about. A little later on, they did market them through KB. So some of these were early 80s purchases out of the Palm Beach Gardens Mall when KB was still around. Kind of a cool story. And of course, if you're running a department store like this one right here, you have to have the Brinks dropping off the money. What a cool way to drop that off, huh? Also, too, there's the kind of the more pedestrian version of the piston popper Mustang, right? I think this one actually came out first. I think it's got 72 on the base. Yeah, 1972, and that's the number 44 Boss Haas. I actually have two of these, and that's from Playware, where the trash in the paint. Very rare, right, to get one with trash in the paint. It kind of left those dark spots. And a friend of mine had borrowed my collection probably in the 70s. It's probably going on 45 years ago. And he liked to play with his outside. So I think he beat mine up a little bit, or maybe this was his. I guess in exchange for him borrowing them, he gave me some of his back. But he did a lot of damage. He scratched up a lot of them. So that was the last time that ever happened as well. Kind of weird. This one right here is an odd one. This was a Zayre's purchase as well. It's the Mazda, they call it like the RX 500 or 5000, RX 500. I guess it's a real car. It's got the spare tire through the glass, kind of weird. Kind of weird, it kind of has LTD looking accents on the back, like the taillights, kind of weird. Just a very odd looking car. Weird color combination too, but I love it. It just works. And again, those early Tomica wheels, whereas, later on they went to these, which I always thought was kind of like being a Matchbox copycat. But I tell you what, they did such a nice job on theirs. Even as a very young child, you could tell quality when you held it, right? So just the way they feel, the way the doors open and close, they always open and close with precision. What does that remind you of? Kind of what happened when they started bringing the real ones over here in the 70s, right? I remember riding in my first Toyota Celica. I could not get over that satisfying thunk that the door would make every time you opened and closed it. Whereas, when you did it on your Malibu or your 69 Camaro, it sounded like all the pieces were still moving when the door stopped moving. Volkswagen Golf. I love this color. Not quite antifreeze green, but pretty close, right? They have like maybe a little bit of metallic in it, but again, it's a very, very translucent paint, right? So you're getting a lot of that color from the zinc body underneath it. And I actually ended up with two of these. Somebody gave me one for my birthday. One I had just bought for myself. And both of them have the surfboards intact. But what's interesting when you get twins is it seems like one's always a little different, right? So you take these two right here, and you can see one is a slightly darker green here than that one. They're always a little different. I do have a twin to this one, but it came up missing in the move. I don't know if my son appropriated it, but I did have a pair of green Javelins as well. As we move over to the Javelin, this is kind of like, pony car row. So you've got kind of a really cool Matchbox Javelin. The Javelin was kind of cartoonish looking anyway, and they kind of took it to the next level, right, with the arching the wheels even a little more, maybe in the rear. Doors open and close beautifully. It's got a hitch, which is really nice. And it's got the wide super fast wheels on it, right, after they had retooled most of their stuff. This one, I guess, was designed to have them, right, because this had wide super fast from the start. What number is that one? Number 9, 1972. Love that color. I always love greens, particularly that antifreeze green. I just love it. I've got an antifreeze green one over here that was a reissue. It's got 82 on the base instead of 68. I think I actually do have some earlier ones that may have had the pre-82 date on the base that probably said Hong Kong. This one I just think says Thailand. Yep. But, you know, bright metal base, all metal, and then that beautiful antifreeze green. It just pops when you look at it. Red line tires with the different, you know, spoke design. It just resonates with me. It's just beautiful. Really nicely done. You know, again, I kind of lean towards Matchbox, and I'm not going to bash Hot Wheels because they definitely had the process down by then, didn't they? But those early ones, a lot of them, they just did not age very well. They just didn't have enough paint on them. You know, but again, they were at a lower price point, right? And you know, just kind of comparing some of the other off brands. I'll delve into the, you know, the way out weird and wonderful, you know, the truly off brand stuff. But just comparing real quick my Lesney products made in England Volkswagen microbus to a Zilmex van. You know, looking at the front of it, how the, you know, cheesy door slides open, the quality of the paint, just everything about it, and you compare that to the Volkswagen that Lesney did. It's not even a comparison, but I'll let you be the judge of that. But I liked all miniature cars. Pretty cool. These came as a set. I'll describe that in another video. I believe that was in a Sears or a Penny's flyer, not in their usual, like their, you know, Christmas catalog. It was a set. All four of those came together. It was pretty cool. I remember Mom taking me to either Sears or Penny's to pick it up. It was pretty cool. Back in the day, when you could do stuff like that. I'm trying to set that so it won't fly away. Maserati. That's a really early one. I got a good story on that. I'll compare some of the British built, the Lesney Maserati, stuff like that, to the ones that were made later after they went out of business and were bought up by a company called Universal Products. So there was a dark period for Matchbox, but I guess a lot of true collectors would argue that Matchbox ceased being Matchbox when Lesney products ceased being Lesney products in, I think, 1982. Kind of a sad story. Anyway, getting to some of the other cool stuff. There's a dump truck I've had early on. That's also an early 70s gift from a relative, possibly my parents, maybe my aunt. I remember one year for Christmas, a box showed up and it had a bunch of little boxed cars. I think this was one of them, along with that Renault. That's an odd one. I never played with it much. I don't know, it just didn't resonate with me. But that's probably why it's in such good condition. Flat black base, which is kind of odd. You know, most of them were not painted or they were shiny. This is 74, and that's the number 2 Renault 17TL. Okay, sure. Nice condition. It's got one little nick on it. That's probably when it fell out of the case over a sidewalk. I hate when that happened. Tomica dump truck. Pretty cool. Again, those cool wheels, those early wheels, and they kind of stole that idea from Matchbox with the little pressed-in bushing that keeps the bed suspended when you raise it. They did that same thing earlier on the Matchbox. They had that same gizmo. Kind of cool, and this one still works. Again, these are going on 50 years old. Some of them. They've been around a long, long time. My refuse truck. What is that one called? Refuse truck. Okay, there we go. That's what it's called. Okay, number 7. I wore this one out. The little tabs that hold the metal to this back thing, they just wore out, and it just slides off. In fact, I think I can get the whole thing actually will come apart if I hit it just right. I can get that whole thing to detach. I can get the whole bed to come off. I guess it'd be neat to have one of these that was unmolested. But I tell you what, that one hauled a lot of trash. We had this little city set up. We played with that a lot, me and my sister. We wore that one out. We had a good time with it. Couple more, and I'll let y'all go. I know I've gone over 30 minutes. I know I can talk a lot, but these are really interesting. Back to the pony cars. I know I digress. There's probably a first release Pontiac. If you remember the series, The Rockford Files, the pilot episode actually had a true Firebird formula. I think it had the twin scoops on it. It definitely had that front end treatment, and I think it got blown up in the pilot. I think it was that one or the next one after, and it had raised white letter tires, so it was a very early one. Of course, you know, later on in the series, they had that familiar. They still had that look for a first season or two, and then when they came out with that really cool completely soft nose, kind of like the Camaros had, but shaped a little different. Kind of neat. So yeah, a little bit of history on that one. That's why I think of when I think of that one. This one was gifted to me by a family friend of ours. We spent a lot of time on their 32-foot Chris Craft when I was growing up. When we lived in Florida, we would go over to the West Coast, and we would spend weekends together on that boat. It was really an incredible time. They actually had given me the flying bug. They gave me that one for my birthday one year. But this one of the daughters I was really close with, she gave me that. It was wrapped up in a tissue. It was very dainty. She didn't want to scratch it. And I think someone had actually given it to her, but she wanted me to have it. I thought that was so sweet of her. She got killed in a diving accident about a dozen years after she gave me this car. So I'm going to say this was like 1975 when this was gifted to me. And I think it was 1988 she lost her life in a cave diving accident somewhere in Orange Sink Grove. I think was the name of the area where she was diving in Florida. Very tragic. It happened Labor Day weekend, 1988. I'll never forget that. But I'll also never forget that day she gave me this car. What a sweet gesture that was. And on that, I'll leave you guys, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.